develop some of these moves that Kobe's learned over time. But as of now, LeBron's not in the top 10. He's probably like 13th. I'd still say Shaq's better than him. I'd still probably put Earl Monroe above him. There's maybe another couple guys that I can't think of off the top of my head that would be ahead of LeBron, but he'll end up in the top 10 for sure. My next thing I want to talk about is also another NBA story, and that's my In the State story. And I want to talk about the Indiana Pacers' upcoming NBA draft moves. And the draft is on Thursday for those of you who don't know. And there's actually not a whole lot to talk about with the Pacers here. It looks like the team is targeting either Gordon Hayward or Cole Aldrich. Surprise, another white guy. Just kidding. Actually, the team is making a ton of news in trade rumors and who they're going to draft and all this. There's a lot of excitement for the Pacers finally going into this draft. It doesn't seem as predicted as it did in past seasons, or maybe, where Larry Bird is going to fall in love with another white guy as their perception is throughout the NBA. So, like I said, there's a whole lot of speculation about what they're going to do. If they do keep the pick, it's suspected that they will either take Daniel Orton from Kentucky, who they seem really high on, surprisingly to me, because, Orton's not a guy who has a lot of college experience, and that's what Bird's path has been in the past few years. And then Ekpe Udoh, who's a guy who actually does have that, tenure in college that Bird has kind of pursued. And while I really haven't liked what the Pacers have done in the past couple drafts, with the exception of Roy Hibbert, who I thought they actually got a lot of value at 17, and he really has shown that he's a solid player that late in the draft. But I would have liked them to go more of the upside type way. Like, instead of trading for Brandon Rush, they should have kept Jared Bayless, in my opinion. He would have given him that answer at point guard that they keep looking for. But their two big needs are the power forward spot and the point guard. So my pick for them, if I were Larry Bird, would be Udoh. I think that he doesn't have the upside like Orton, but he certainly has polished himself into a solid player, and I think that he can still grow. He does fit more of the power forward style than Orton. Orton seems like a true center, in my opinion. And Udoh is also slightly more athletic. He can hit the face-up jumper. He's pretty solid when it comes to his ball handling. He can move well with the ball in his hands. And he's also a good character guy. You hear that all the time in the draft. He's a great character guy. But the Pacers really do covet that type of player. And he wants to win now. So I think that he would be a player that would step in right away and help this team move forward. Maybe not push them into the playoffs. Indiana has a lot of problems and a lot of question marks as far as that goes. They do have talent in Granger and Hibbert, in my opinion. Hibbert still has a little bit of work to do, but I think he is a solid starting center in the NBA. But they still can shop Troy Murphy, and that's where the trade rumors are coming into effect. The team has been shopping that 10th pick and Troy Murphy to address their need at point guard, and it seems the rumors are all floating around Darren Collison from New Orleans, Ty Lawson, who played at North Carolina on their championship team and was drafted by Denver last year, Tony Parker, and George Hill, who are both on San Antonio right now. Indiana is looking at both of them as options, not getting both of them, but possibly trading for one of them. Out of those four, my favorite fit for the team would be Darren Collison. And he is a scrawny player, but the guy just plays with so much heart, and that is something that Indiana is desperate for. They need players who really want to win, really want to be a part of the team, and I think Darren Collison could bring that to him. The guy has Rajon Rondo type upside, in my opinion, as well, and he has a better jump shot than Rondo. He's a really good defensive player, and that comes from playing in Ben Howland's UCLA defense. A lot of people really didn't give UCLA the dap that they deserved during their couple years ago runs when they had Jordan Farmar, Aflalo, Collison, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love. I mean, you look at all those guys, they were all first-round NBA picks. Howland did a solid job. He also produced Drew Holiday. Now, they had 2 off years here. It'll be interesting to see where UCLA goes, but that's not what we're talking about. Collison also moves the ball really well. His turnovers were a bit high last year, but he's a rookie. He's still learning the NBA. However, he did have a ton of assists as well, so he is moving the ball in a good way more often than not. He also can create his own offense. He's got a good pull-up jumper, and he has clutch mentality. He's a guy that will take big shots when he needs to. So that is a lot of what Indiana's looking for. And I like George Hill as well. He's a local kid. He played at IUPUI. He played at Broad Ripple High School. He's a good offensive point guard. But that's the thing, is he's a good offensive point guard. He's not a guy that's going to pass the ball as much as the Pacers really need him to. They need a guy who will be both. They need a guy who will take shots when necessary and also pass the ball when necessary. So that's why I believe Collison is the best pick. Obviously, Tony Parker is the best player out of those 4, but he has an expiring contract. So unless the Pacers could lock him in for a few more seasons, because they will have cap space next year when Troy Murphy, Mike Dunleavy, TJ Ford, and half the team falls off, with the exception of Granger, they have a lot of space to sign Parker, but will Parker stay if traded is the big question, especially considering who he's married to. Is Eva Longoria really going to want to stay in Indiana? I don't think so. I think she wants her husband to either play for the Knicks, the Lakers, or the Clippers. That would be the best situation, in her opinion, for him. So it really comes down to, will Tony Parker make the best basketball decision for him, which still might not be the Pacers, but it would be a good situation for him, especially considering that they have a few solid players, and they're really kind of a point guard and a decent power forward who's purely out there for defense, away from being a playoff caliber team. It'll be interesting to see where the Pacers go in this draft, though. Whatever move they make will be possibly Jim O'Brien and Larry Bird's last decision as Pacers top honchos. If it doesn't work out, don't expect to see those guys around next season. As much as Larry Bird is Indiana basketball, if the guy keeps making poor decisions, it's about time to say, hey Larry, why don't you go be Indiana basketball at your own house and stop screwing up this team? Speaking of screwing up teams, that leads me to my in Bloomington topic. And there's not a whole lot going on here